Hi there, my name's Aaron Short. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm talking about the Fender Tone Master Pro guitar modeler. So I wanted to start the video with some playing. I just went through the first 10 presets. I gotta say, first of all, I'm coming from an angle of I've tried all the modelers. I've kind of committed to the Quad Cortex. Can this replace the Quad Cortex for me? Maybe that's not fair to even say at this point, but I feel like many people are thinking that way. I certainly was, and that's the angle I'm coming from, just so you know. So to start the video, I wanted to play the presets, and I gotta say, just going through the first 10 presets after a factory reset, they're great. I could go and gig with it tomorrow. And you can even have the gapless switching. Did you notice when I had all the spills and reverbs going on and I changed preset? There was no gap at all. I know that's using DSP, and we can talk about that, and the Helix can do that, blah, 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 blah. That's not what I'm here to do today. I just want to talk about what I think about this initially and who I think it's for, and will it replace a Quad Cortex for me today. This thing, in my opinion, is Fender's answer to modelers coming from their business point. So their business point is they make amplifiers. They make tube amplifiers. And we know that tubes are getting harder to find. They're getting more expensive. It's making tube amps become very expensive for people. Fender have to move into the digital world, as many companies do. And this is how they do it. And I think they've done the right thing, but we'll talk about that as we go. So basically, what they've done is they've sat down with all the modelers and said, right, this is good about this one, this is good about that one. And they've kind of made the greatest hits of modelers. And the form factor of this thing is awesome. The design, the build, the way you've got the two knobs. I'll show you a picture on the screen. The way you've got the screens, the touch screen that's not too big. Like on the Quad Cortex, it's kind of big, so then the switches are small with no screens. The Fender one has a decent sized screen, very high resolution, nicer looking than Quad Cortex, so everyone will be very happy when they see that coming from the iPad. And then you look down and you've got your screens above the switches. It's really well thought out for a gigging musician. And then they've taken that platform, which you can actually do anything with software updates now. Nothing is actually a physical knob. Everything can be changed with software. But their approach is to make it just like you're using an amp. And I think it's very clever. I don't know if it's ultimately the answer, and I'll get to that soon. But basically, when you go to this thing, it's blown my mind, because you load an amp, and I'll show you on the screen what I'm talking about. You load an amp here on your chain, and you want to make a change to it. So you basically, it's almost like you're walking up to the amp. Ready? I'm walking up to the amp, I'm reaching out, I touch on the touch screen on the device, and it doesn't even just pop up, it slides up at the front on the screen. It's like, hi, the amp is here. You've got the physical knob. So I don't usually like this interface on plugins, but because you have the rotary encoders on the pedal, when you reach down to the knob that says reverb and turn it, the reverb turns like this. It's almost like Fender VR. It's so close to playing a real amp physically. And that's why I think this is for Fender's audience base that currently play a tube amp. Because if you've got a tube amp and pedal board and you go out and get one of these, it's very comfortable. The screen is beautiful, it's easy to use, and when you want to make a change to your amp, it's as close as you can get to walking up to an amplifier in a rehearsal room, reaching over. The knob turns, right? As you turn the knob on the pedal. The foot switches are knobs, so you turn the knob. It's like you're turning a knob on an amp. You're looking at an amp knob. This is Fender VR. It's very, very smart. This is a way to get tube amp enthusiasts into modeling. To go even one step further, they've made it even easier, because one thing about like a Quad Cortex is you add your amp block, and then your cab block, and then your reverb block, and then your vibrato block if you're recreating an amp with those effects. That's okay, it's not hard, but that's a few steps. On the Tone Master Twin, you click on a combo amp, and it's all there. The volume, treble, bass, and then reverb, speed, intensity for vibrato. The cab is already linked. You can click on a cab and move the mic around. Again, by turning the knob, the mic just goes through all of the possible combinations, and you are done. So I know it's not hard to do that on the other modelers, but there was all those little steps you had to take that are all eradicated from the Fender. For me, I am of an age where I remember using amps on stage in my 20s, but these days I love gadgets and technology and iPads and iPhones. So I'm a little bit torn here, because the point I want to mention in the video now is, what if you are born today? What if you're 15 years old? What if you're a 12-year-old guitarist Have you ever played a Fender Twin? I remember I hadn't played that many amps when I first got into the Helix and things like that. I was actually seeking out amps to see if the Helix sounded as good as the amps. So is this the right step? Is this too much of a foot in the past? Well, we're talking about Fender, and when you talk about legacy brands, they kind of have to keep a foot in the past. That is their business model. But what will happen? I'm so interested to see what will happen in the next 10, 20 years. I don't think new players will know what these pedals and amps are. And things like the Quad Cortex with their very flat and boring graphics will be considered more modern. But here's the thing. This unit, as I mentioned before, is an open platform. There's no like knob labeled bass or labeled Princeton. They could do an update down the line that makes this more modern in the same way that Apple did when Apple went from their skeuomorphic design and flattened it all out. They literally went from a picture of a calculator to numbers on a screen. Fender could still do that. If everyone jumps onto this platform and loves it and gets used to the modeler, then they could release version 2 of the firmware where everything goes flat with a whole new interface. I'm not saying they will. It might not be the best business move, but they could do it. Back to my original point, to convert people to the amp modeling, this is amazing because so many people are not using amp modeling. Most people I know still use amp and pedals, and I think this is the way to bridge that gap, and for that I applaud Fender for doing that. This actually translates to the sound as well, funnily enough. I was playing through the two units, the Quad Cortex and the Tone Master Pro, with similar sounds to try to compare them. And these days I like to just play, do I like it or not? I don't like to get too scientific about it. I noticed off the bat that the Tone Master Pro had a punchier, more amp-like sound. And that bothered me because I'm looking for that. But I have a theory on this too, and I think it even connects to what I just said. If you click on your combo amp and your cabinet, this is the screen that you get. So you can move the mic around like this to any position. These are all separate IRs, but rather than saying an IR, you just move it around. And you can do that with the knob on the pedal too. It'll just move the graphic around. But I noticed that a lot of these amps, the clean amps especially, are using the dynamic microphones. They're using the 7B mic, or most of them actually using the SM57 mic. So this ties into my theory as well. When you go and play at a local bar, they tend to just put a single SM57 or 7B in front of your cab. That is what they tend to use in a club, right? Or a bar or a small wedding. Only on big tours would they use a cab under the stage with two mics. Or in a studio, you might have an expensive ribbon mic and that mic combined. But that goes into my theory as well, because a SM57 is a very punchy microphone. You get a very direct, punchy sound. So I think they've deliberately put SM57, a single SM57 on some of these clean presets, knowing that, again, a lot of the players coming from the tube amp world are used to hearing a single SM57 on a tube amp. When I looked at the Quad Cortex cab that comes up by default for the Fender amps, they use a 57 and a condenser. So once I changed that condenser to a 57 or muted that mic, it sounded a lot closer, and I was able to dial them in basically to be the same. All of this coming together just tells me this is to convert existing players, and I think they're going to like it for those reasons. But is it the ultimate solution long term as a gear fan? Or is it, I don't want to say a step backwards because it's a good unit, but what is the future of guitar? That is the question for me. I think I'm going to stick with the Quad Cortex because it is still smaller. Okay, it's harder to press the buttons, I agree, but it's smaller and you can't have your cake and eat it. It also has more routing options and you can connect 4 instruments. And one of the reasons that I said I was going to keep my QC months ago is that occasionally I'll play in a small bar and I want to plug the whole band into it. I can do that. I can't do that with the Tone Master Pro. If I was only going to play guitar through a pedal, I may go for the Tone Master Pro because it does have the regular power cable, a bigger size, screens labeled, gapless presets. I do love all that stuff, and I do think it can sound, I think it sounds basically as good as the rest of them. But these days, there's so many options, and you've got to choose what works for you. Otherwise, you're just going to buy everything, and that's not a wise move unless you want to. Fine. I don't want to do that. And I want people to come to my channel and tell them what I'm currently using and show them how I'm using it. I don't want to constantly be comparing and A-Bing and showing every different unit. I really believe that they can all be used absolutely fine. But what works for you? And I hope that what I explained today shows you who I think the Tone Master Pro is for. Not that young players won't like it too. You might just like that interface. But I really think that's who it's for. And more importantly, it doesn't have the flexibility and all the effects that I need. So the Quad Cortex has the pitch block. Quad Cortex has all of the routing options. It's more of an open box, a little portable open box, and that's what I need. So it's very early days. Fender have said they'll be updating the product. If they do release a lot of firmware updates, I'd love to check it out again at that point. Please remember, when the Helix came out, it was very bare bones. When the Quad Cortex came out, it was very bare bones. I couldn't even use it. But now, with all their updates, and the updates have been regular and very good, now I think it's a great solution for my needs. The Tone Master Pro is much more complete out of the box and just much more of a conventional guitar rig. But what do you need? I can't tell you that. I can only tell you my experience with a few days with it, and I hope this video explains who I think this unit is for. And if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments below and tell me why you like it and how you plan to use it. And if you've tried one, what do you think of the sounds? Let me know. If you're new here, please subscribe and ring the bell. I do like to check out the new gear and talk about gear on the live streams, so please come and hang out with me and we'll discuss these things some more. Until next time, take care and be well. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.